Hi, welcome to Nicky's vlog, and today, TERF Wars. I had no idea what the word TERF meant and had to look it up. Apparently it stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminism, or Feminist. I never encountered it before, but this week I got announced, or last week I got announced into the FT's Champion of Women in Business list, 150 people who champion women in business, and that has kicked off this whole kind of media storm, and lots of people have been tagging me in their tweets, and I've been responding to some of those tags, trying to understand what their views are, and found that these are a collection of women, I think mostly women, who object to the fact that I may be included on a list of women. And so I've tried to dialogue, I've tried to engage with some of them, and these people have been quite threatening with some of their tweets. And then when I talk to them on Twitter and try and suggest that we meet and have a proper conversation, or meet and have coffee and let me understand, I mean, both these two ladies have ultimately blocked me and are not interested in having a debate. One lady who was at least interested in having some sort of a debate is halfway through when I said, well, it's not necessarily a kink. Her question was, well, genuine question, if cross-dressing isn't a kink, what is it? I'm going to pose a question back in a minute, but I thought I would address this. I told her I couldn't do it on Twitter because it's the wrong format, that I'd record a video, so I'm recording a video. I will tag her, but unfortunately she's also blocked me now because, apparently I'm a narcissist and only interested in my own kink, and so she's not that interested in the answer, but I thought other people might be. And so I want to start this by saying, look, it's not representative of the trans community. I'm relatively a new member of the trans community, and I don't understand all the complexities, and I certainly don't understand all of the arguments and all of the red flags to people. So I wouldn't want anyone to think that I'm being representative. This is my story about me and all about how I see this and why I put a dress on to go to work. And I think, actually, I'm pulling a lot from my show this year, which is called God Hates Me, I'm Trans, because of these Baptist ministers that want to shoot us and have us put to death and let God sort us out. And so I'm going to pull on some of that material in order to answer the question. But essentially, for me, there are 4 buckets of benefits that I get from this, 4 reasons for doing it, none of which are to do with a sexual kink. The first one is there's a whole bunch of business benefits. I'll cover that in a few minutes. There's a whole bunch of social benefits to me, kind of it's improved and enriched my life. There's some personal there's a personal journey going on here, and I'm improving myself as a person. And then finally, I think I've probably added 5 years to my life expectancy. And I just want to kind of rattle around these one at a time and just briefly talk about them. Business one's the biggest one, because of course, my brand, Corporate Drag Queen, and kind of promoting women in business is all, what we do for a living. And it all started with me putting this dress on. And I put this dress on 6 years ago, 12th of December 2016. There's a whole blog about this you can watch if you want the whole story. But essentially, I was trying to change the culture of my business, and I thought I would give them a metaphor. And the metaphor is, stop thinking of me as daddy. Wait till you get home, you're in trouble. Think of me as mummy. Have you got your schedule? Have you got your packed lunch? My job as the chief executive is to make you successful. It is not to shout at you for getting it wrong. Go out, make mistakes, get into trouble, and then call mummy, and I'll come in, bring you home safe, and sort the client out. My job is to make you successful. It's not to shout at you for getting it wrong. Mummy, not daddy. And the more I use that metaphor, the more that metaphor has transformed the business. But it's also transformed the way I manage and the way I think. I keep the dress in my office to remind me to act and think and behave differently. And it's had a massive impact on our profitability and on the business. And it's now kind of rolled forward to, it's not just about me anymore. I think that we're taught as males, as male managers, to be very problem solving. Somebody comes with a problem, my job as a male manager is to give you the answer back, and that we tend to be, as males, very focused on objects and things, whereas female managers tend to be much more inclined to help other people find the solutions. So when people come with a problem, instead of me saying, here's the answer, I go, oh, that's terrible. What do you think the answer is? I don't need my ego to be involved in me coming up with the answer. My job is to help them come up with the answer. And that's a much better way of coaching and a much better way of managing. And so solution enabling and female attitude towards management, and it's much more people orientated. And in reality, it's a combination of both of these that really makes for successful business decisions. And so we advocate for a gender balance in the boardroom and a gender balance in management teams. And we have a campaign at the moment called The Future of Sales is Feminine, because actually I think there's a massive lack of classically feminine thinking in sales teams, which is driving a sales culture that's very aggressive and very competitive and not perhaps suited for the way the modern world is. But that's another story. So for me, the whole breaking down of those gender stereotypes in business is absolutely critical if we want businesses to succeed in the future. First reason for doing it. Second reason for doing it is obviously the brand Corporate Drag Queen is a pretty good brand. Like if you Google, this was today, if you Google Corporate Drag Queen, these are all me. Like the whole of the top page is me, and I don't have to pay for SEO. So it's a pretty good kind of brand in order to get people to find me and find our organisation and find what we're doing to promote women in business. The article in the FT is really interesting because, of course, that's prompted articles that have tagged me and used the phrase corporate drag queen in all of these mainstream press in the UK in the past 2 weeks, which, as my marketing team are telling me, is it's pretty good because it is building SEO and building exposure. So there's a lot of really good business reasons for doing this for me. But if it was just about business, then I probably kind of, it would be a gimmick and it wouldn't be really worth much. There are social implications for me, which I had no idea until I started to put a dress on. And those social implications are primarily because I now travel like this. This is my outfit for flying home last week from LA to the UK. What I find is it filters my life. Some people look at the drag queen or look at the trans woman as I'm walking through the airport and they literally cover the eyes of their children and scurry them away. It happened to me on a flight not 6 weeks ago. And then other people take one look and come over and go, oh my God, you look amazing, and get into a dialogue with me. I'm not pretending to be anything I'm not. I'm not trying to pass as a woman and be treated any way differently. I am just advertising that it's okay to be feminine and it's okay to look as good as you can. And what happens is the world filters itself to me. And I have a whole vlog about which we call 0.006% that if you're interested you should watch. But my life is massively enriched because all of the arseholes in my life have left the building because they're uncomfortable with this. And my life has now been filled with a load of people who are much more open-minded, much more liberal, much easier to coach, much easier to involve with, and much more fun. Socially and commercially, my life is better because of this. On a personal level, though, actually, things have changed quite a lot for me. So this is a picture of me in Mykonos. I had the first kind of holiday away from my family for 3 days with a bunch of friends that actually I met in New York, but they live in Sydney. We have met in New York, in Sydney, in Bali. We're probably going to Tokyo. We've already booked to meet up in Hawaii. My life has become socially much more enriched, and my travel, which I have to do for work now, is much more interesting. I call it the 3 Fs. In the show, and it's that I've become passionate about fashion, about fun, and about friendships. And I am having literally, this is a global thing for me. I travel 3 weeks out of 4. My wardrobe is full of fashion boutiques from all over the world. My favourite shops are in New York and Melbourne, and there's one in Sydney, and there's one in Singapore. And my life has become this kind of wonderful, glamorous kind of lovely thing to be in, which it wasn't, which leads me on to the 4th bucket, which is around my life. And my life prior to this was as a typical business male, traveling 3 weeks out of 4. People think business travel is glamorous and interesting and exciting, and actually it isn't. Business travel, particularly if you're a straight middle-aged male, is lonely. isolating, and completely and utterly miserable. And that's why the biggest killer of men my age is suicide, because the way we're coached to interact and where we're coached to be, splendid isolation and deal with your own problems and, man up and suck it up and big boys don't cry and all of that narrative that goes around with being a man when you're also out on your own, and, it's just miserable as hell. And fortunately for me, I was able to transform my life from that into something much more interesting, and my life now has become the complete opposite, right? My life is, I'm busy, I'm connected, I'm having fun. Like, my life is just 1,000 times better than it was when I presented this film. I picked this photograph because it looks like there's a pretty good chance I'm going to get to go to the Oscars this year, February 24th. This might be the outfit I'm going to wear as I walk up the red carpet with all the stars. It's not something that would have ever happened to me, if I still presented as male. So, for me, I think you'll find that my whole life, every aspect of my life has got better. I believe I'm a better husband. I believe I'm a better father. I am definitely a better manager. My business is more successful. Like, everything about my life is better because I put a dress on. So, hopefully that gives you an idea as to why I think this question's kind of a bit redundant. Like, there's so much more to presenting as female than just sex. That's very close to saying there's so much more to being female than just sex, which does make me think the sort of people that are asking this, this sort of leads you to the idea that the person asking the question thinks the only reason why somebody would choose to be female is sex, which is a really sad view of what it means to be female. And I wonder whether you're missing out, or whether you're only missing out on all the other wonderful stuff that goes along with it. We all know the downsides, and we don't need to be a lecture on, certainly don't need me to tell you how hard it is to be a female and how hard it is to be attacked, but I've experienced it. I've been sexually attacked, I've been physically attacked, I've had people cancel contracts. I've had people tell me that, I've lost my credibility because now I present as female. I can't be taken as seriously. I have people question my decision. All sorts of stuff has happened in the last 5 years that just opened my eyes to the fact that women do not get treated the same as men. And I'm just reporting on it and pointing it out and saying it's ridiculous. So I've got a question for you. I suspect one of the reasons why lots of people think it's a kink is that actually it is a kink, right? Outside of the trans community, in the straight community, what we know is that the single biggest kink is BDSM. 56% of straight couples have experimented in the bedroom with BDSM, and 42% have experimented with some kind of gender bending. 42% of 90% of the population means that 30% of the population have tried gender bending as a sexual kink in the bedroom, which means 1 in 3 at least of the people that ask this question, and it's probably, I think, all of them that ask this question, have experienced gender bending as a kink. They're never going to admit it, but either they've asked their husband to put on stockings, or they've asked their wife to let them put on stockings, and then they've put on some sexy underwear and they've tumbled into bed and had some fun. Now, so for most people who are not trans, it may be a kink. And so this question is reflected from the fact that it's your kink, not mine. For the trans community though, those people take gender bending and leave it in the bedroom, and they don't take it out of the bedroom. You don't kind of put on your stockings and suspenders and walk down the street, and you don't go out to a nightclub and you go out to a bar, and you certainly don't go into a business meeting, because that's what you're doing. So it's something different for the trans community. It's not what it is for the 30% of people who find this sexually erotic in the bedroom. And it would be very generous to say, well, that's what's prompted this question. Actually, I suspect the more I spend time watching the tweets that people are tagging me in this TERF war that's going on, that maybe for this particular section of the community that fall into the TERF, these radical feminists are asking this for a completely different reason. And I think it's a little bit more insidious. And so my question to them is, what's wrong with this logic? And so it starts with you feel uncomfortable with trans people. Specifically, you feel uncomfortable with a trans woman. Now, what we do when we feel uncomfortable is usually we retrench and then we look for support. So I think this leads us to, or leads you to, wanting to find other people that also agree with you that it's odd and weird having a trans woman around. That then leads you to wanting to get other people to be afraid of us. And on the whole, like, we're not particularly scary. Like we're not kind of frightening people, we're not upsetting people, we're not that aggressive. Like, it's not like I've got testosterone, bubbling through me and I'm looking for a fight all the time. So in order to make people afraid of us, it's helpful if you can draw a link between somebody, something that everybody's afraid of. And we all care about our kids. Even if they're not our kids, we all care about kids. So if we can draw a link between trans and paedophilia, we can make everybody's afraid of paedophiles, right? So if we can say, well, some paedophiles might put on a dress, go into a bathroom, rape a little girl. Therefore, logically, all trans people are paedophiles, right? It's really messed up logic, right? But that's the way people think. And so I think some people really want to make this argument stick. They really want to say that some paedophiles might be trans, therefore all trans are paedophiles. And the problem with that argument is you have to believe that cross-dressing is a kink. Otherwise, this whole argument fails. If cross-dressing isn't a kink, then I'm not a sexual predator and it's fine to have me in the bathroom. And so what's wrong with my logic, right? Is this why you're asking the question? I'd like to know what you think. Put it in the notes, that would be really interested. Why do I care about it? Because the problem with this argument is it puts lots of trans teenagers at risk. Since I was in the FT 2 weeks ago, there have been 3 teenage trans suicides in the UK alone. Now, I'm not going to suggest that it is all of these TERFs and all of the Twitter and all of the newspaper stuff that's going on that has caused those 3, but does seem like 3 is more than normal, and it does seem like the more we disenfranchise these teenagers, the more they feel like the only way out is at the end of a rope. I particularly care, and you'll know from my show if you've seen it, about this is a friend of mine that I'm coaching. This was taken when she was 14, she's now 16, but this is Corrie. And as you, I don't know whether you can tell, but Corrie is trans, so genetically male, lives in the States and lives in a state where actually dressed, appearing like this, and she is supposed to use the male bathroom. Which clearly puts her at risk, like a massive risk, and it's not the place for her, and nobody would agree it's the right place for her. But not only is that a problem, we then also get the trolling from the Christians online who kind of love this, low-life piece of dirt who's going to hell. Like, if you're a trans teenager, in fact, if you're any teenager and you're being bullied and being put into dangerous situations, then that's when, suicide looks like it's a way out. And the trans community is 10 to 15 times more likely to be the victim of violence and 10 to 15 times more likely to suicide. And those stats seem to me to be utterly make the transphobia in the press utterly irresponsible. Like, whether you agree with the arguments or not, to create an environment where these kids feel like society doesn't want them is horrendous, and we have to stop it. So I have a whole separate block about this bit, where why do you people feel uncomfortable about trans women, and I think it's based on the Abrahamic religions. If you're interested, you can watch that as well. But meanwhile, I'd like to know what you think. So you can get me at @NickyTake all of my contact details. I'll move out the way so you can see it, or you could just Google the corporate drag queen. So right now, if you Google corporate drag queen, I am every video and every item that comes up, it's free SEO. But if you're watching the video, please, in the notes below the video, even if you hate me, even if you think my opinions are obnoxious, just be civil and tell me, and give me a rational argument for why I've got this wrong, and let let me respond and let's have a dialogue, because, you know, we won't get anywhere if we just sit behind our computers and throw shit from a distance at people that we think aren't like us. We have to actually get into a dialogue, understand each other, so that we can, you know, move the world on. So please, tell me what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye.